I spoke to one of the highest, without mentioning the name, no tribes. And when I went after exactly what Saif, his speech, and I talked to him and I said, you hear the speech, what do you think? He said to me on this, he said, Rashid, the fascists didn't separate us. Do you think somebody like Gaddafi will come and do it now? Libya is gonna be well. And I think the tribes, they have very, very, very good leaders, and they will guide Libya into a democratic country in God's will.
Ali Ibrahimi, do you believe that to be the case? We know that Colonel Gaddafi has stoked rivalries between these different tribes. We know a lot about his divide and rule tactics, but is it likely that he could get to the point where he could set one tribe against the other?
Well, I think the dividing lines are essentially going to be pro and anti-Gaddafi, pro and anti the status quo. And I think that's, it all depends on what he can offer people. So in that sense, I don't think his situation is qualitatively different from any beleaguered autocrat who's making a last stand. But of course, I think he will exploit tribal allegiances. He always has. The Green Book itself, as a political manifesto, is essentially embedding tribalism. It's a call for tribal society and a tribal state. So in actual fact, we can expect him to do that. But really what this boils down to is people that are going to throw their lot in with him, and people that have decided that the writing is on the wall and it's time to defect.
Dr. Najm, is tribalism still a big issue in Libya? Because we know that in recent years, say in the last 20 years or so, it's been on the decline. Tribal kinship has been on the decline because of education, because people have been moving to the cities, urbanization. So perhaps are we making a little bit too much of the different tribes in Libya?
Well, tribes, or tribalism rather, it increases when people are desperate, when there is a sheer absence of law and order, where there are no true representative of people. So people would turn to their tribes for protection, for help, for service. But when you have a state and you have a civil society, a tribe tends to take a second role, and people will just come forward to the state for help. But what's happening in Libya, it's nothing to do with tribes or tribalism. It's to do with a man and his sons surrounded by desperate, hopeless, helpless lynchmen who would do anything just to stay in power. And I wouldn't be very surprised if the whole of the Gaddafi tribe coming out and distancing themselves as their section did in Benghazi from the regime. So I didn't think this is to do with tribalism. It's all about injustice, a dictatorship that has been there for so long. And by the way, the tribe of Gaddafi, even the most loyal tribes, and the tribe of Gaddafi themselves, they have not really benefited that much. It's only his own immediate family and a tiny network of cronies around him who have benefited from his regime. The rest are the same. If you look at the city of Sirte, where the tribe of Gaddafi living, they are just suffering as much as everyone else. Lack of infrastructure, of respect, even if you look at the closest lynchman and his cronies are not necessarily from his tribe, but they're thugs who happen to believe in his ideology and the way of running the country, and they just clustered around him. So it isn't to do with tribalism. It's about dislodging a regime which is a dictatorial.
Okay, Rashid Kikir, while we look at all these power shifts and what is playing out there in Libya, let's look a little bit outside that. Is it likely that Gaddafi will get any support in the Arab world? Does he have any close allies in the region?
What I have for Gaddafi right now is good luck. I mean, the guy, he's just went crazy. I mean, this is what I'm gonna say, and I'm gonna make it clear. Libyan lives, it's a red line, and he crossed it. It's not only he would got, there is no one, and I don't see Gaddafi, he knew from the beginning that his end is gonna be in Libya. The only place we can think is gonna be Zimbabwe, and that's it. I don't see that he's gonna support from anyone. And it just as I agree with Dr. Najm. I mean, his time is just done, and he lost it, and I think he lost everything.
Okay, that's where we are going to have to leave it. Thanks to all our guests for joining us, Faraj Najam, Aliyah Brahimi and Rashid Kikir. And thank you for joining us on this edition of Inside Story. Of course, we welcome your comments and suggestions. Please email them to insidestory@aljazeera.net. From the team here, goodbye.
East Timor's government has declared it's time for foreign forces to leave the country. But with a frail infrastructure, is this nation prepared to face a future without international support? 101 East, at this time on Al Jazeera.
Al Jazeera focused in the face of danger.
Israeli commandos descended upon the ship.
We focused on political change and political miscalculations. On the power of one voice and the pain of a people. We focused when the world froze
Delivered so little.
and countries burnt. Throughout Europe, we focus on news and documentaries that matter to you. Al Jazeera, television that truly inspires.
Unpopular with some at home, untested overseas. The first year has not been easy for David Cameron and his coalition government. In conjunction with YouTube, Al Jazeera asks your questions to the British Prime Minister. World View, an interview with David Cameron at this time on Al Jazeera.
Afghanistan is faced with a huge challenge.
Relations have gone really sour between us and our allies. We have inflicted considerable damage on the enemy.
The people who make international headlines.
Ultimately, the truth will out.
They want to stop this publication of information that embarrasses them.
Make time for Sir David Frost. Frost over the world. At this time on Al Jazeera.
Rhythms of resistance.
A part of the struggle and popular resistance is art. Through my art, I resist. Resistance is my art, and my art is my war.
Musicians using music as a way to maintain their cultural identity.
I believe that when I sing to the world, I portray Palestine through my voice, my singing, and my songs.
Songs from the lost homeland. At this time on Al Jazeera.
The Golan Heights, one of the spoils of the 1967 war, home to 20,000 Israelis and source of 1/3 of all Israel's water. But what of the Syrians left behind? With families torn apart and all borders closed, they come to talk to their loved ones across the Shouting Valley. Across the Shouting Valley on Al Jazeera.
The unrest goes on in Libya. Now, NATO is calling an emergency meeting.